Hello, everybody, and welcome to the White Hatter Virtual Studio. My name is Darren, and today's session is something we've been looking forward to for quite some time. We've brought together 5 highly respected digital literacy and internet safety advocates from 5 different countries for a truly global conversation about youth, teens, technology, the internet, and social media. Now, what makes this discussion so important is that while the internet connects us, it also erases borders. The challenges and opportunities our kids face online are not limited by geography, which is why hearing perspectives from around the world is so valuable. Our panelists each bring a wealth of expertise and experience from their own countries, offering insights shaped by their unique cultural, legal, and social context. Now, from Australia, we have Susan McLean, widely recognized as Australia's foremost expert in cyber safety. A former Victoria police officer for 27 years, Susan was the first person to be appointed to the role dedicated to cyber safety and young people in her country. Since founding Cyber Safety Solutions in 2007, she has become one of the most in-demand voices in the field in Australia. From Ireland, we welcome Wayne Denner, a speaker, author, and trainer with over 2 decades of experience in the digital space. Wayne speaks to over 60,000 students, parents, and businesses every year, helping them navigate the online world with greater confidence and safety. From the United States, we have Diana Graber, an educator, media producer, academic, and mom. Diana is the author of Raising Humans in a Digital World and the founder of Cyber Civics and CyberWise. She is a widely sought-after voice on how technology impacts human behavior and how to help kids build healthy relationships with it. From the United Kingdom, we have Richard Pomfrett, founder and driving force behind the Stay Safe initiative. Richard is dedicated to protecting young people by raising awareness, passing on essential skills, and ensuring they have the knowledge they need to avoid becoming part of the future statistics. And from Canada, we have Brandon Lohr, CEO, instructor, and my boss here at the White Hatter. Brandon specializes in creating digital literacy workshops for students, parents, educators, law enforcement, and businesses. His expertise includes internet safety, privacy, and open source intelligence, with a master's in professional communications focused on hackers, scammers, and the realities of teen sexting behavior. He is also the creator of this very virtual studio in which we are conducting this panel. So with an incredible panel spanning 5 different countries and countless years of combined experience, let's dive into the global discussion on digital literacy and internet safety. Let's get after it, shall we? And what I'm really looking forward to is listening to all your accents. I think that's going to be the best part of this interview, to be quite honest. And, it was kind of like herding cats to try and find a time so that everybody could meet. And unfortunately, poor Australia Susan, it's like 6 o'clock in the morning. She's got her big cup of coffee. She's good to go. But I am just so happy that you could all join us today because I respect every one of you. As you know, I follow most of you. I highly respect the work that you're doing in your respective fields. And I just think that we're going to have a lot to offer to parents, caregivers, and educators who are going to be following us, and maybe even other subject matter experts in this area. So let's get into it. So what's going to happen is I'm going to ask each one of you a specific question, and we'll go by person to person. And then after that, we're going to open it up so others can comment on that. So that's going to be the first round. The second round is going to be one big question. A third round, if we have the time, the same thing. And then we'll ask for closing comments. So my first question goes to Diana. So my question to you, Diana, is in a recent online webinar, you mentioned that in today's fast-paced, hyper-connected world, the mental well-being of our teens is more crucial than ever. So my question to you is this. How can we as digital literacy and internet safety advocates better support our youth in building healthy connections online?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me. And I'm sorry that I have the most boring accent here. So we'll have to put up with that. But that's such a great question. And, I think to prepare for today, as it so happened when I opened up my internet, one of the first things I saw was a new federal study that came out here in the US that showed that there was actually a 20% decrease in depressive episodes for teenagers in the last 3 to 4 years. So
Yeah, I
actually
saw
we're
that.
getting better, which is so exciting. But nevertheless, that shouldn't let us off the hook. We don't want any teen to have a depressive episode. And I think as you know well, Darren, I think digital literacy, it can be a cure for that, to help kids know how to be really empowered by digital media, but also to protect their well-being when they use it. And I really excited to let you know that thanks really to you and to Brandon, as guests of two podcasts that we did last year, one on deep nudes, what you were just speaking about, and also
Yeah.
another one on sextortion. Those were so widely received here and really made us think deeply about those topics. And we looked around, and no digital literacy curriculum was really tackling those things head on. We talk about it around the corners, but I mean, kids are dealing with this stuff, and that's huge for their mental health. So next Monday, we're launching a brand new series of lessons called Digital Health and Wellbeing that hits this directly on its head. So the first lesson is just about having healthy relationships and consent. And then we move into sextortion and sexting and revenge porn and AI and nudes, and then chatbots and personal relationships. So that's, for our part, we think that that could really help because it's addressing things that really are impacting kids' mental health. And I want to put it out to you guys as experts. I would be thrilled if any of you would be willing to take a look at this and, maybe share these lessons in your communities. We would love to get it out to as many people as possible. We're really at the front of this. So, these are the things I think will help kids. Again, let's not skirt around these issues, let hit them straight on. And education is power. We can't just talk about numbers and kids are depressed and what's causing it. Who cares what's causing it? Let's go after the things we know that can help contribute to make it better. So that's for our
Yeah,
part what we're doing.
I agree, and I'm going to quote Dr. Etchells from Great Britain, who said, maybe we need to start asking ourselves why the smaller cohort of youth are ending up in those, because we have the vast majority aren't. So why is that
Right.
smaller cohort? Like, what's going on there? And I think that's where I'm seeing the research starting to go. They're kind of looking at that area. So does anybody else have any comments? Go ahead and throw your hands up because I would love to be able to see add in. So Susan, you were first.
Well, bright and early good morning from down under. We're the end of the world, so it's either really, really early or it's really, really late. So, in relation to those comments, it's 100% correct. In the work that I do in schools and have been doing for 15 years, all those topics are covered. There's a clear need for understanding because if you don't know what something is, you can't identify it. If you can't identify it, you can't even take even what limited steps there are to protect yourself. We're lucky in Australia that cyber safety education is part of the national curriculum. It is
Mm,
mandated to be taught. So, whilst that can mean different things to different schools, and some schools handle this really, really well and others not so well, probably for the last 4 years, sextortion has been in every presentation I deliver. Sexting and nudes, I start with grade 3, so 8-year-olds, because that's where it's starting, and that's always been in our curriculum here. So all of these things, the AI, we don't call it revenge porn in Australia, it's image-based abuse because it's
mhm.
not pornography, because it's non-consensual. So all these things are covered, they have to be covered. We have great laws, consistent laws, not like in America where every state can do their own thing. So it does make it a little bit easier for schools and law enforcement here in Australia, but we have to educate to prevent. We can't do whack-a-mole. We can't have police trying to react to everything because there's simply not enough of them.
Yeah, a couple of things on that is that much like Australia, Canada, we have federal laws that apply to every province, much like Australia does as well. And like it or not, I do believe Australia are the leaders. You just look at the e-commissioner's office, right? Like that should be the gold standard, I think, for every country around the world when it comes to those issues. But absolutely agree with you. So Wayne, I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, Diana, fantastic. I'd love to see some of the content that you're producing, and one of the things that I think would be so fantastic is trying to get a more of a cohesive, joined up approach in the content. So we're kind of very, very similar in the messages that we're delivering because this is a global issue and a global concern that impacts children and young people all over the world. And I'm kind of in a very interesting position here where I'm located. I'm between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. So I technically work across two jurisdictions. When I'm in Northern Ireland, you're very much going on the curriculum of the UK. When you move to the Republic of Ireland, which is just 5 minutes away, I'm into the curriculum of the Republic of Ireland. And sometimes the messaging can be different. And I think we need a better approach to that. We need a more joined up approach. And I think we need more universal messaging and try to align our content as much as we can. So I would be delighted to see some of that and see how I could weave some of that into my workshops and presentations.
Great.
That's interesting, Wayne, that you're so close to both borders like that. So how do you navigate that as a digital literacy presenter?
It's tough because, you know, you have the online safety bill, which has just come into law in the UK, which covers,
We're going to talk about that.
you know, the UK and Northern Ireland. And then if you flip the switch, then 5 minutes as the crow flies from where I'm sitting, you're in the Republic of Ireland and you have a completely different, very much under EU law and regulation there, very much drawing from what's happening in Europe as well. We have an online safety commissioner here now, which has just been appointed in the past couple of years. So there's going to be big shake-ups and hopefully big positive developments in this landscape, and something that I'm really looking forward to seeing over the next 12 to 18 months. But I'd love to get those messages more aligned to what, you know, the professionals here are doing in other parts of the world. It would be fantastic if we had more of a universal joined up approach.
Richard, I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for the invite. This is such an amazing pleasure to be with some great minds and great people doing work in this space. I mean, most of the things have been mentioned. I mean, I'm in my work having conversations about all the things that have been mentioned so far, and I think from my point of view, I mean, this shapes my work. It's about having more of them conversations, but it's one thing I probably would add is it's having conversations with children on their level. One thing that I've come up against quite a lot in the last year or two, especially when talking about some of these extremely serious topics, you know, sextortion, exploitation, grooming, sharing indecent images or being coerced into sharing them, is that I make sure when I talk to young people about these topics, I make sure to highlight to them that just how common it is, and also make sure that they know that if it does impact them, they're not going to be in trouble. And the reason why I say that, unfortunately, this has happened a couple of times just this academic year. We're in the summer holidays now, so this is, you know, last academic year when working with schools. I had two separate incidences when working with groups of about 14-year-olds, two separate incidences where two individual incidences where individuals come forward and disclosed after our session that they were currently being exploited and being coerced into sharing images. And it was my session that gave them the confidence to come forward with that, which was amazing. And we was able to help them. But the worrying thing is when, through conversation with both of these individuals, and it was exactly the same conversation in regards to what's made you come forward today. And for one of the girls, it had been happening for 8 months. When I said, what's made you to come forward today? We had conversations about home life, school life, what trusted adults do they have? They both said, we've got great home lives, we've got supportive parents, we've got people in school that we could talk to. And when I said, well, what's made you come forward today and not before, is that they said, well, when we've talked about this subject in school before, it's always from a purely legal standpoint, a legal perspective, whether it's sharing nudes, and they thought they would be in trouble. They thought they'd be arrested and all of this crazy stuff. And it was only me saying that it does happen. It's easy to happen. It's easy to be tricked. But if you do, you're not to blame. We're here to help you, but we can't do that if we don't know. And again, that's so important when working with young people in this area to make sure they know how easy it can happen, but how much support there is for them.
Like, it is still amazing to me to see how many law enforcement here in Canada still tell teens that if they send a nude, they're distributing child pornography. And the Supreme Court of Canada has clearly said, No. If it's in our country anyways, if it's two teens under the age of 18 in a private consensual relationship sharing a nude within the privacy of that relationship, it is not seen to be illegal. What makes it illegal is if it's shared outside or distributed without consent. And so when we go into schools, we've heard the same thing, Richard, from students after our presentations come forward, because they believe that if they did, they were going to get arrested for the distribution of child pornography, right? So again, a part of what we do is communicating and speaking the truth, right? Which rather than trying to scare kids, because I find that law enforcement, that's what they try to do, scare kids, you're going to get arrested. When in fact, that's just not true, and which only further victimizes these survivors who are having to deal with this stuff. So next question is for Richard. This is right up your expertise. Since the Netflix series Adolescence, the topics of incels, misogyny, and the manosphere, I understand that these topics will be discussed in your country's new relationships and relations education that just came out, which is going to be interesting. I can't wait to hear you talk about that. But given that you speak to many of these issues in your Boys to Men presentation, here's my question to you. What are your thoughts on this change in your country? Was this a needed change, or was this a knee-jerk reaction to the series Adolescence?
Definitely start by saying it's a needed change. I do welcome the change in the updated RSHE guidance. It is overdue. The last time this guidance was updated was about 6 years ago, 2019. And it does aim to address these more new relevant topics that were brought up in adolescence. Issues related and connected to the so-called manosphere, incel culture, misogyny. These are all now stated that they need to be addressed, and we need to support young people and educate on these topics, which is great. But it has to be done properly, and it has to be with the right approach. Now, it does say in the guidance that it's important that we take a child-centered approach. We listen to young people. We give them the opportunity to feel heard, and because it is their lives and it is impacting them, which I think is a great step in the right direction. But if it isn't done like that, we do run the risk of labeling and pushing young people away, especially boys, within this topic. I mean, as far as adolescence goes, that was huge over here. You guys can share the impacts as it's had in your individual countries, but over in the UK, it was huge. Obviously, it was a UK-based show. And you mentioned knee-jerk reactions. I would say that I think that series probably did play a small part in pushing this guidance forward. But the backlash, definitely, I think, from this show did worry me. I mean, it was a captivating show. I watched it. I enjoyed it. But it's important to remind everyone, not you guys, this, but anyone that watches this afterwards, it is a drama, or it was a drama, and it wasn't a documentary. And it did do a great job shining a light on boys and the issues that boys and young people face in today's world. But lots of the things covered, they wasn't factual. And I think as a result of lots of the reaction that came off the back of that show, it ended up demonizing boys. It ended up scaring a lot of people, certainly parents, maybe professionals that work with boys and young people as well. So that, not so great. But I think probably, to end on a positive, I've been talking to boys in schools about these issues for a long time now, and the conversations are always productive. They're always well received, and they like talking about these issues. They feel that, well, this is the first time we've had an opportunity to do so. So if it's approached like that, and this guidance won't come into play until September next year, 2026 anyway. Some people will do it earlier, but if it's approached like that, giving them the space to talk, share, and have open and honest conversations, I think it's a good thing.
I need to fact check myself. Is it true that the government wanted the show Adolescence to actually be played in the schools as a part of the learning process? And
so
is
it was
that
mentioned.
still? And
it was mentioned.
just mentioned, though? It's not happening, or it is happening?
No, it was mentioned. That was, again, this like knee-jerk reaction off the back of that show. Keir Starmer, the UK Prime Minister, mentioned it would be a great thing to show it in schools. I don't know who advised him on that, but lots of professionals that work in this space immediately jumped on that and said, no, that would be a bad idea, because, it's not factual. It's a great drama. But it's not a great documentary, and I don't think it was meant to be one. Right. Plus, it's a 15+ rated show, so that would leave out a large majority of young people that need to have discussions about this. To my knowledge, it isn't happening. I really hope, fingers crossed, that it doesn't. Like I said, I know lots of people. Dr. Sophie King-Hill has been quite vocal on this, and she's a leading expert in this field as well. And yeah, everyone rejects that idea. So hopefully it doesn't happen.
I see your hands up, Brandon. Go for it.
I'm just thinking about, you mentioned the rating. Maybe that would be a media. You have to submit your ID to confirm how old you are. Anyways, do we need to fund, or maybe crowdfund? I'm just thinking from a media background perspective, some kind of drama show that actually emphasizes the good stuff. I mean, it's easy to pitch to a streaming service. Here's all the bad things. We're going to do a mockumentary or something about all the bad stuff. And I don't know, people like to watch that stuff. But, certainly a streaming giant's not going to provide money for a positive show.
I think, it was positive in the way that it was a great drama. But the way that it was picked up and the reaction to it, everyone thought this was just factual, that young boys are in their bedroom, they're watching online content. And we all know there is harmful content online. There's no, we're not getting away from that. But, the link they made to a young boy watching online content, people like Andrew Tate's names were mentioned, to then all of a sudden committing violent crime against a girl. They don't dominate the statistics, violent crime, boy, that age, they don't dominate them statistics. And generally, when they do, they're older, and it's usually male on male violence. In the UK, we have far bigger problems in regards to gang culture and knife crime.
Richard, fantastic work that you're doing. I've been sort of following it from the sidelines for some time, and as a parent of two teenage boys myself, I know how important these messages are to young men. So valuable work. I think from my perspective here in Northern Ireland, and indeed in Ireland, the adolescence documentary certainly shone the spotlight into it. And if anything, it caught parents' attention to say, look, we need to be more aware of this, and we need to use this as a conversation to talk about maybe some of the content that our young people, particularly those teenage male boys, that what they're accessing online, what they might be seeing. But also, I was very cognizant at the time that, obviously Andrew Tate was mentioned a couple of moments ago, that whenever you're talking about those types of figures, you have to be so careful that you don't go in a way to say you shouldn't be watching this, or don't be following them, or don't be listening to them, because that's not the right approach. So I used it as an opportunity with my two teens to have the conversation about some of the influencers that they were coming across online, what they thought about some of their messaging, how that impacted them, how did it make them feel, maybe towards girls and females. And I think that for me as a parent, at least, was so helpful. So again, well done on that great work. I think that's so important, and it's something that I'd like to see more schools here across Northern Ireland and indeed the Republic of Ireland doing programs on just that.
Susan, here's a question for you. Australia is about to move to an age gate of 16 years for many social media platforms, and I've been watching closely the UK's implementation of their age gating legislation and how some of their challenges may be foreshadowing what may happen with this rollout in your country. So my question to you is, what are your thoughts on this new legislation, and what are some of the positives and what are some of the negatives?
Well, my thoughts on the legislation is that it's rushed. It was pandering to a minority of people. It was for a populist vote in an upcoming election, and it's flawed. There is no way that this is going to work, particularly as there are no consequences for anyone. So other than the platforms who allegedly have to self-nominate to say they have an under 16-year-old on their platform, there's no consequence for the young person for being there. There's no consequence for the parent who might allow their child to lie. And the Prime Minister clearly knows nothing about young people because most of them have fake ages anyway. They use a VPN. There are many ways to fudge the age verification that looks likely to be used, and that is the biometric or facial scanning technology. And I sit on the board for that. I'm advising the government about what is out there and what might work. It's going to give parents a very false sense of security. I've already had them say, well, if it's banned, that means that's bad. And if it's not banned, it means it's good and it's safe for my child. And as you would all know, there's nothing that's safe. There's only safer. And we can't protect children 100% of the time. So that's where that digital literacy and education is still going to be very, very important. I am all for making the platform safer. And I sit on advisory boards for most of the platforms anyway. But if we're removing the access to social media from everyone under the age of 16 years, we are going to harm a lot of young people, particularly from minority groups that find their community of support online. I already see in my presentations very distressed young people who think that they're going to lose contact, not with their school friends. That's not the big deal. It's about the community of support that they have built from far away, from around the world, that's going to be taken from them, allegedly in one foul swoop. And you can't ban your way out of this. This is not going to work. I did Turkish TV last night, and there was an English psychologist on it from somewhere in London. And her argument was, oh, well, a parent can decide. And if a parent wants to let their child use their account or set up an account as an adult and let their child use it, that would be suitable. Well, that's even worse because the platform thinks the user is over 18. So none of the inbuilt default safety settings are going to be on offer in that situation. So there are so many people that have no idea about the digital landscape. It's popular. It was sort of like when Keir Starmer said, let's show adolescence to everyone. That's going to fix the problem. And our stupid Prime Minister followed suit. Oh, if it's good enough for the UK, it's good enough for us. But that sort of died a bit of a death now. We've moved on. But certainly going back to adolescence, the one thing it did here is, I suppose because we're Australia, there was quite a lot of shock about oh my God, is this the British school system? And why would any person want to go there? And, and I talk about it. You have to talk about it because otherwise you get all these mixed messages. But the first thing I say is it is a drama series, not a documentary.
Yeah.
But it did generate water cooler chatter. So I think the best part of it for me is that a subgroup of parents that may have allowed their child unsupervised access for hours on end in their bedroom, they've changed their mind. They've realized that, you know what, perhaps I do need to do something to be a parent rather than let the internet do it for me.
Yeah. Richard, I'd like to have your comments because I know that you guys have already rolled out your legislation in Great Britain. And what are you guys experiencing right now?
In regards to talking about banning?
Yeah, the bans that came in, the age gating and all that kind of stuff. Because you guys have just implemented the age gating process, right?
Yeah, for adult, adult sites. Again, it's already within days. We're hearing way arounds. Susan just mentioned different things. VPNs. The thing is, kids will always find a way, and whatever they're talking about, restricting, banning, and removing, there will be a get-out clause. There'll be a way around it. And my concern with all of these things, whether it's putting restrictions on, I work with children that are far younger than 13 that are all on these platforms anyway. Forget about 16.
Yes, too.
My concern with these things is it's moving away from what we all do. It's moving away from education. It's moving away from digital literacy. It's moving away from building digital resilience and having the opportunity to have conversations with young people. This is their world. They need support. And saying you can't or banning, my two major fears for that is, one, if it's banned, parents are not going to talk to their children about these things. I mean, Wayne, you just mentioned adolescence. Okay, I've got an opportunity to talk about some of this stuff, and that conversation may not have happened without that. It will stop parents talking to their young people about it, because they'll think, well, they're not doing it, they're not allowed to, so we won't need to talk about it. That doesn't help young people. But more importantly, go on, Susan.
We don't talk about sex because they're not doing it.
Yeah.
Because they're not old enough. So,
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah, we need to talk about it. And the other point is, we've sort of touched it on already. If it's banned and they're not allowed to, but they do find that way, which inevitably they will, then if something goes wrong, then if they get in a situation where they're harmed from being online, whether it's a bullying issue, whether it's an exploitation issue, whether they've been coerced, even if they've just seen harmful content and it's playing on their mind and having an impact on their mental health, they're not going to come forward. They're not going to come forward and ask for support, because I'm not meant to be doing it anyway. So it's so...
I'm going to be a little reflective. When I was in middle school and high school, if somebody said, don't do it, you know what I did?
You're going to do it.
I did it. Right?
Don't press the red button.
Even my friends were surprised I became a police officer, right? But anyways, Wayne, I know that Richard enacted your name, so I'm going to let you go next, and then Brandon as a follow-up to that.
Yeah, just really quickly, I was just going to pick up on, of course, we want the internet to be safer for children and young people. Of course, there's a lot of harmful content out there. But I know in the UK, and Richard has probably spotted this himself, there was a huge petition that gained traction to looking for the government to basically bin the online safety bill, because of now you've got adults now who can't access content that they once previously were able to access. Now, it's not just content of an inappropriate nature, it's all sorts of content mixed into that. And then you have the platforms that are also deploying different verification technologies. And then we have to ask that wider question, then if I'm uploading my sensitive passport and driving license to these platforms, what happens if there's a data breach? So there's loads of things in the mix at the moment about all of this and just how it's going to work. And it's really going to be interesting to see the pressure that Ofcom come on over the next sort of 12 to 18 months in relation to maybe some modifications to what they've already done. But there certainly is 400,000 people across the UK that ain't happy with restricting access to certain content.
Yeah, speaking of workarounds and students being as smart as they are, as someone who spends a lot of time on the internet, I have seen a lot of conversations. Right now, it's about if you're logged into Google and your Google account, that you may need to submit your verification age before you do a Google search. So I'm seeing a bunch of people talking about, what about DuckDuckGo? What about Yandex? Like, I don't know. Given the entities that own that potential search engine, you really want to go use that search engine? And I don't know. I don't think Yandex is going to necessarily abide by laws in non-NATO friendly countries. So, I mean, we saw that when US was about to ban TikTok. Where did all the students go? Oh, yeah, an app that wasn't even translated to English yet. So, I don't know. I have to admit that the amount of spite that students will go to just to prove that older lawmakers are wrong. Oh, it's wonderful stuff. So, and I'm also wondering, because a lot of these rules and bans and laws are really focused on well-established, already legacy-level social networks, talking about the Facebooks and such. Is that going to open the door for new companies that are going to design apps in such special ways that does technically follow within the rules, but in spirit is actually designed to get around them?
A really good example, Brandon, I just wrote an article on Social AI Feed, which is a new social media platforms that the kids are now starting to migrate to, where you're not talking to an actual individual, you're talking to an AI now. So that in and of itself may be able to bypass, right? So it's I think Susan said it's like this whack-a-mole, right? Like it's like you just can't do it. Diana, did you have your hand up? I can't
Yeah,
see.
and I'm just going to build. Well said, Brandon. I mean, we all know kids get around anything we put, any block we put out there. It's just like, hey, get around it, you know. And
Nah.
we're focusing so much on like the banning and the restricting age-wise. Meanwhile, AI is coming so fast and furious. Like it's like a steamroller, and
Yeah.
we're not even looking at the train. We're looking at how do we put up roadblocks. So
Yeah.
what we need to be addressing AI literacy, because these kids, regardless of their age, they're going to be talking to chatbots.
We're going to get to that question.
I know.
We're going to get to that
Like,
question.
the bands aren't even thinking about the future. They're thinking about the past. So
Yeah, and that's what looking at these conversations with all these folks in different regions and who we are putting as the arbiters of what is okay and what is not okay for the internet for everyone else. I think that cultural importance is so important because we're putting these regulations and rules on social networks to regulate to some degree what we put on them is going to impact everyone worldwide, and it's challenging, and I see that, and I wonder if we are moving to a future where every single region potentially has their own dedicated separate internet source, because I'm finding it hard to think any other way what that would look like. And as someone who's a gaming nerd, immediately I'm thinking of Mike Pondsmith's cyberpunk world where every city is its own separate internet and you can't go to the public internet because everyone's different and it's all separated and all regulated differently. So, I mean, we're looking at possibly, I don't know, great firewalls around each country, because how else are different countries going to regulate the different cultural aspects of each other? It's going to be very challenging.
Wayne, here comes the question for you, my friend. In a recent blog post, you stated you have never, or that you have ever wished there was an easy way to filter out the worst of the web before it even reaches your child's device. I know you don't believe that hardware and software is the magic bullet that will solve all these issues, but it can definitely help. So my question to you is, what kind of software and hardware solutions do you recommend parents or caregivers to consider, and why?
Yeah, thanks, Darren. You're spot on. There's no single piece of tech that fixes absolutely everything when it comes to technology. But I believe the right tools, as you mentioned a couple of moments ago, can definitely help. The problem is at the moment is there's a myriad of stuff that's out there that people are peddling. Solutions for this, tools for that. Some of them work a little bit, others don't. If we look at Apple, for example, even their built-in screen time tools are pretty poor, to be honest, and don't work half of the time. So parents are often left to look for third-party solutions that can sometimes help. So what I try to get parents to think about a lot is three simple letters. It works off an acronym that I call the ABCs of online safety. A stands for managing access, B stands for setting boundaries, and C stands for having conversations, which is really important. The conversations are critical in all of this. So a layered approach I find works best. You know, it can help filter out some of the harmful content stuff before it reaches your child's devices, provided you have it set up and configured correctly. That is a challenge in itself. So again, I try to look at some of these solutions, review them for parents, clean browsing, OpenDNS, NextDNS, Custodio, and I've done little step-by-step videos on how they all work and how parents can configure them effectively in order to get the best out of the technology to help manage the access and set the boundaries. But it's so important that parents don't become solely reliant on these third-party tools to do the job. You still have to parent. You still have to be there for your child. You still have to be curious about what they're doing online. You still have to be involved in their digital world. And I think all of those things coming together make for a real effective solution. And then finally, it's so important for parents to keep themselves up to date with this ever-changing landscape. You know, people in this room today who are creating really good content really good educational resources, and helping parents then upskill themselves. So as the technology marches on, so too does their knowledge and understanding that's ultimately going to help keep their young person safer online.
And like I said, this is why I love all your accent. Like we call it myriad, and you sounded quite different when you said that word. Anybody else have any comments on what Wayne had to say here? Richard, I see you popped up.
Yeah, I just want to say, yeah, completely agree with everything you said, Wayne. And in fact, when I work with parents, it is definitely the most common question I ever have is, what can I do to restrict? What can I do to remove? What can I do to make sure they can't do this? You know, what's the magic button, essentially? And as you said, it's a confusing landscape for parents. There's so many things out there. There's so many things out there that are either built into technology or external things that you can download, you can buy. And it's hard. And, you know, conversation, as you said, it is so important. I always say, and if a parent listens to this, hopefully it will help. There are tools, use them. They can work and they do work, but keep the conversation going. Talk to your children like settings do not exist. Use them, talk to your children about them, talk to them about why they're helpful. And again, it's to keep them safe. All these conversations need to be around safety, not we're trying to stop you, restrict you or spoil you, stop you having fun. These tools are here for you. These tools can protect you, but keep the conversation going. And it's exactly the same when I talk to children about it. You know, I say tools aren't just for parents. Settings on a game or an app you use, they're there to control your experience. They're there to enhance your experience. Can I stop that person swearing at me through my headset? Can I prevent that person from leaving a comment? Can I leave or block or restrict this from happening to me? And again, it's important that children understand and young people that these tools help them as well. They're not just about parents stopping them. It's, I can actually use this to control my life online as well. And yeah, that way then they start to, that's where that digital literacy comes in. Then they go online and say, well, okay, what can I put in place to create an environment that I want? And the rest will take care of itself.
Let's go right to Brandon. Brandon, we're seeing an increase in what I like to call nanny legislation being passed, policing what children and parents can and can't do on social media platforms. As an example, some legislation takes away the right of a parent or a caregiver to allow their child to be on a social media platform if the child is under a certain age. So my question to you is, should it be up to government to police what children do on social media, or should it be up to parents and caregivers?
The cop-out answer is going to be a bit of both, right? The government infrastructure is there for folks who do not have the ability or capacity to take care of themselves or those that they are charged with taking care of. So there is an importance of having some kind of infrastructure to maintain everyone has a baseline of safety and security. However, the challenge is when you're implementing those restrictions and rules, there's going to be a lot of unintended consequences. And there are going to be those who do not abide by the rules, especially when within the rules, you don't put the responsibility on the people who are breaking the rules in the first place. You're putting the breaking the rules on someone else. It's the social networks who get charged. It's the social networks that get fined. Well, that's going to mean that the individual bad actors, there's no deterrent. Oh, you have to submit your age. You have to verify. Well, I'm not going to get in trouble if I lie about my age on the internet. So there is no deterrent there. And you're putting all the responsibility on social networks. And they're sure, if we could probably stop all crime in the world if we put a police officer on every street corner. Social media could have a spy manually watching everything you type and submit to your best friends, but that's not going to happen. One, for their own privacy, but also two, just financially, to pay for people to spy on each other. They're going to, put that on AI and whatnot. So there's a ton of, I do think what we talked about earlier in regards to, it's who we bring and it's the experts we listen to and who's basically, being cherry picked to actually present or provide information as expert witnesses or, testimony to any particular case. And sure, if you're an entity and you don't like what your expert panel has to say, you just find a new panel.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick up on something Susan said a little earlier too, and I'd love you to build upon this, Susan. Yeah, Australia did some good research where they found that there was a large majority of parents and caregivers that actually allowed teens under certain ages to go on some of these more problematic platforms. So therefore, why is it only because I believe parents have a role to play here? Like there's a parental responsibility here. But I find that if I say that, I'm labeled as I'm blaming the parent. I'm blaming the parent. Well, hold on a second here. Parents have a part to play. Yeah, we need to focus on these social media platforms. We certainly do. But if you're giving your child a new iPhone who's 13 and giving them unfiltered free range access to some of these social media platforms as a parent, knowing that this is going on, because you can't be willfully blind anymore. Like we've been talking about this publicly, all of us, for years now. So where does parental responsibility? I'm not saying that that's where the blame has to lie. But we got to stop saying, "Oh, you're parent shaming here. You're parent." No, we're not, right? We're just saying that as a parent, I have a responsibility. If I give my child the keys to my car without any driver training and they go out and harm themselves, well, then I should have some liability. And here in Canada, there is liability where parents are allowing their kids to do something online that they shouldn't be doing and harm is made. Thoughts, Susan?
Yes, so we don't have those laws where a parent can be held responsible for the behaviour or choices of their children. But absolutely, it is a parental responsibility. You hand over the devices to the child, or your school provides them, whichever it is, the device comes home. So it is your responsibility to ensure that your children are using technology respectfully and responsibly. And we shouldn't need the government to say no to your child. The studies that you're alluding to, and they marry up exactly with what I see, because I do a little survey every time I'm in a primary school, is that around 86% of under 13s that are on platforms already against the age of 13 are there with parental permission. So a parent has helped their child to lie, to go somewhere they shouldn't be. Raising the age to 16 is not going to address that one little bit, because that same parent is just going to keep helping their child to lie. And I'm really blunt about this when I talk to parents. And I will say, I do not understand how you can willingly and knowingly help your child to lie to go somewhere they shouldn't be, that is a known place of risk and danger, because there's nowhere else in the parenting journey, I guarantee it, that you are encouraging dishonesty other than on the internet. So these are the things that need to be addressed. The E-Safety Commission's research has showed exactly almost identical numbers to what I've been saying for years. And if you're going to hand over a device to a child, you're giving your child to the world and the world to your child, and you have to take responsibility for that. And it's not parent blaming or parent shaming. It is a statement of fact. And one other thing I talk about with parents is the 50% rule. 50% of your job is to keep your children safe. And the other 50% is to ensure that your child is not inflicting harm on someone else. So being a parent comes with responsibilities. It's not a set and forget activity. And I think there are a lot of parents that do a really good job in this place, but there are many that don't realize what they should have done until after the disaster has happened.
Yeah, I mean, look, in Ireland, we have the digital age of consent, which came in a couple of years ago, and it's done absolutely nothing to eliminate young people from going online, particularly primary school children as young as 7, 8, and 9 that are going on to TikTok, Instagram, and Snapchat, not even before they're 16, but before they're 13. So we have that law in place in Ireland, and it has made absolutely no difference. So raising the age is pointless, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's interesting hearing that, some places around the world don't have parental responsibility laws. I think, at least what I'm thinking for us here in Canada, sure, we're not going to have politicians put laws saying parents are, legally responsible for if something bad happens to the kids on the internet. However, we are kind of seeing that happening through the court system, through case law, where a young person has done something that was within the parent's purview of control. And it's the case law, it's the legal judicial system that is bringing logic and reason and kind of not, listening to the political rhetoric of this all. And I think, at least for us in our region, that it's super slow for case law and this stuff to really take effect. But potentially this appears to be the only clear-cut solution that we're seeing actually take place this very moment.
Everyone said pretty much everything anyway, and I know that we're all doing this, but there needs to be a space where parents need this education as well. We do it anyway. And the reason why I say that is when I work with parents, I'm always, well, not so much now because it's come normalized, but I'm always shocked just how little they know. They are allowing their children to do certain things which they think is one thing, but is the opposite. Or they allow them to do certain things without any idea of potential risks, whether that's the platforms that are accessing to watch content, whether it's games. They're just not fully aware. They're just not fully aware of what they are doing and how they're doing it. And again, I think that's quite often what's, not in all cases, but allowing them to do something because they think they're safe. They're at home. They can see them. They're in the room with them in many cases, but they're not fully aware of what they're doing, who they're doing it with, and the associated risks. And when you highlight that to them, then that's when you get the light bulb moment. It's like, oh, I didn't have a clue. I really didn't. So they do need education.
Before we get to the next question, by a show of hands, how many of you have been frustrated where you've offered a parent presentation, say to a school has 1,300 students,
I know what you're going to say.
and you get maybe 20 parents who show up, right? Like,
And that's the problem.
They're crying for the education, right?
Yeah.
And helping them. And when the schools are offering it for free, we're not getting the attendance, right? And so, I mean, if one of you can figure out what the special sauce is, you could retire a billionaire, I think, right? Like and Diana, I'm going to let you speak and then we'll move on to the next question.
Yeah, I just wanted to share this story because it's from so long ago, but like 10 years ago or something, we got hired by Verizon. I think it was Verizon, one of the telephone companies. They put so much money into this presentation called Be a Pro, and it was all about parent safety. They paid schools to use the presentation. They paid for a pizza party. They paid for an after party. They couldn't have done anything more, and it was a complete flop. Schools just didn't want to put the effort out because when they did, hardly any parents showed up. And granted, this is a long time ago, but I mean, they couldn't have done
It hasn't
more.
changed.
No.
Well, let me just share something. We did one place where we did get all the parents to attend. The school said that if you want your child to have technology in the classroom, you must attend the presentation. We had 100% attendance.
Yep, that's
Right, 100%
Yep.
attendance.
So a lot of the schools that I work with in Australia now have a mandatory session, and the student comes along with the parent. It's the night they sign the acceptable user agreement or they get their device, whatever. And if you do not come along and sign in, your child is not accessing tech at school. And it's really sad that you have to threaten to punish a kid because of the stupid parent, but it works. So I'm now getting audiences of 500 and 600.
That's amazing.
Nearly every night, because the schools have now, because they've realized that if they do this, then there's going to be less problems for them to deal with the next day. So, but again, we shouldn't be at that point, but we are.
So here's the group discussion. We have noted a significant push by some in our industry to not only ban the use of cell phones in schools bell to bell, but now also laptops and iPads. And personally, I don't believe in bans, but rather restrictions. I do believe that educators should have the autonomy to allow their students to use tech in the classroom for educational purposes. So I would be interested to hear everyone else's thoughts on this. Like, I truly do believe, like, we shouldn't be allowing free range where students can pull out these things and listen to songs and watch movies in the middle of the class. Like, no. But we should have restrictions in place that still allow educators to say to students to use technology. So throw your hands up and I'll answer along the way. Like, Susan, you go first. That was quick.
Okay. So in Australia, we were certainly one of the first places in the world to bring in personal use of mobile phone restrictions. So it's very much separated here. So tech use in schools, so iPad, tablet, laptop, Chromebook, all of that. That's considered educational use. Those devices are linked to the school network. Yes, there are workarounds, but that is acceptable use of technology in the classroom. What has changed here in probably the last 6 or 7 years is the bell-to-bell, no personal access. And it is about distraction. It is about kids filming each other. It is about bullying. It is about lack of social cohesion in the playground. But it's more than that. It's about duty of care, in that children are then on the unfiltered part of the internet at school on the school day, accessing pornography, being groomed by a pedophile, and that then becomes the school's legal responsibility. So in every state and territory in Australia, it is mandatory that from the time you enter the school ground till the time you leave, you have no access to your personal phone. And that is working extremely well. And all the schools are saying, you know, best thing since sliced bread. We're very happy that we've brought that in. That is 100% separate to using tech in education, which needs to occur, and kids need to actually know how to use tech, what it is, what it does.
So just to clarify, if it's a school issued laptop, Chromebook, iPad, that's okay as long as it's with the teacher's go. But if it's their own personal device, that's a no-go.
Yeah, so it's mobile phones and connected devices. So it's iWatches, Apple Watches. It's anything that comes into school with an internet connection, capable of an internet connection, is banned in every state and territory in Australia, and it's working really well. The tech use for education tends to be the tablet, the laptop, the Chromebook, etc. That is either provided by the school, or we have what we call it here, I'm not sure what it might be anywhere else, bring your own device. So the parent signs an agreement with the school to provide a device, but there are clear rules and restrictions on what that device can do and what it can have loaded onto it prior to coming into the school.
Are there exceptions for students who maybe need this for type 2 diabetes 1? So there are exceptions, right?
So yes. So it's not like Mary needs her phone because she feels lonely if it's not in her pocket. We don't have those exceptions, but certainly for medical use, for the diabetes, yeah, that's not an issue. And that is written into all the legislation anyway. So that wasn't even considered as a blanket ban because, you know, we know that that is being used. But I want to have my phone in my pocket so I can watch TikToks at lunchtime, nope.
You know, in the United States, I was scrolling through my phone because I was trying to get exact numbers for you, but so many schools this year have banned cell phones in the classroom. And, you know, I don't even want to talk about that anymore because I'm tired of it. But if we are going to talk about it, we need to talk about education at the same time, because we can't ban cell phones from the world. The kids, if they can't use them at school, the first thing they're going to do is go home and be on it the rest of the night. So why are we not teaching them how to use their tools in a way that's productive and smart and safe? I don't understand why we're not having that dual conversation.
But we have a duty of care. So here in Australia, it's a duty of care issue, which is common law. So yes, what we need to teach children is time and place. That these are wonderful tools, but there is a time, i.e. between 9 and 3:30, that there is no valid reason for you to be fiddling on your phone. And that doesn't mean that they don't race to it when they finish school or on the bus or going home. But if something happens on a device at school in the school ground, the school is 100% legally responsible for that. So that is one of the other things that is behind, you know, restricting the personal use of mobile phones. Teacher-directed learning. So there's exemptions if a teacher says, okay, we're going on an excursion to the zoo tomorrow. I want you to bring your phone so you can take photos of the elephant, things like that. So there's that. But we are prohibiting I will use my phone when it suits me because I can. And kids don't make good choices. They're kids. Their brains are not wired that way. So we have to help them to understand that there is certain times of the day, and it will be for the rest of your life, where you can't fiddle on your phone. And that's what, for me, developing those good online habits from as early an age as possible is going to reap the rewards.
If you just finish really quick, I don't think anyone would disagree with that at all. I mean, that's super smart, but we need to be spending time in the classroom. We don't do this in the United States. I mean, I'm talking
Yeah,
about
we do.
here in the
No, we
US,
do.
like
Yeah.
our curriculum, Cyber Civics is used in,
Yeah.
just this many schools. And what we try to do is within it, teach them all the useful ways they could be using technology from everything from, connecting with others to doing research to finding out more about the world.
I've been watching some videos online. I love following kids, right? Because they give us all kinds of information in their world, right? And they're showing me how they're putting burner phones in these yonder pouches now, right? And keeping the other one because you can't search them, or chocolate bars that are the size of these phones into these yonders. Brandon, go.
The tech use for education is an interesting part because we are seeing conversations about people wanting to ban those Chromebooks from the school environment altogether, which I obviously do disagree with. And I think it really comes down to level of access, because if you want to come at this from the corporate world, sure, generally a business would issue a laptop that's controlled by the business to the employee to do their work on that controlled device. But at schools, we see some schools that pretty much have a Chromebook on a parent's shopping list for back to school. There are some schools, and that's not managed by the school, it's just the student's own Chromebook, which you can do anything you want on. Or then there are some schools that unfortunately are the ones that do have the funding, and I think it comes down to a big funding issue. There are some schools that are much lower in funding, and they don't have the ability to basically give a kid to rent a Chromebook for the entire school year. Or the Chromebooks there's maybe 1 to 5 students who use a single device. So it's easier and cheaper for school districts to go, hey, here's a Chromebook, put it on the school shopping list for back to school, but it's not managed. So all the issues that school districts are arguing about having phones, anything your phone can do, your Chromebook can do too. Even Snapchat, you can log in via the web browser. It's not just a dedicated app you download on the App Store, or you run an emulator, an Android emulator on your book, so then you can have all the Android apps available. So I don't know. I think we just need people who actually understand technology to kind of make these rules and regulations.
Yeah, there was loads of great stuff said, and I agree with pretty much everything. I think in Ireland, at least, and in Northern Ireland, it's very haphazard at best. They've got the yonder pouches, which students are, as Darren mentioned a couple of moments ago, dropping in calculators and burner phones and all sorts of stuff. They've got another thing called the phone away box, which schools buy, and it goes onto the locker, and you drop your phone in there, and it's locked. Teachers have to go out and check it. I even know some schools that are now just pulling out the iPads and the Chromebooks completely and saying, we're going back to books. We are going back. So there's a number of principals that I've spoke to who said that's the way we're going to go, because we're actually seeing it impacting other aspects of the student's educational journey, and we're going to move more this way. So it's difficult. I mean, everything that's said so far I agree with, but at least here in Ireland and Northern Ireland, it's haphazard.
What I liked about Susan's comments was that it's reasonable, it's restricted, but it's not prohibited, if you know what I mean, right? Like I just think that, like, and I don't know if you've seen it, because I have seen it with some groups in your country, Susan, where they want to see a complete ban of all technology within the classrooms, not just cell phones, but also Chromebooks, and like they just don't want any tech in the classroom. And I don't think we're doing our kids the best service when it comes to the future, right? So I really like your approach, what you're saying. These things, because you're not feeling happy right now. No, absolutely not. Leaving it up to a teacher, like out on a school act for, taking picture, I totally get it.
But the missing thing, Darren, I think often is the phone at home. I mean, let's put in all these restrictions at school and say you can't go onto your phone. As soon as the student gets out of the school, they're straight onto their phone, and then they're on it.
That's what Diana said.
So we need to have that parental involvement as well, so that adequate boundaries are set at home. So I nearly think the school needs to include the parent in the conversation. This is what we're doing in school, and it would be fantastic if we could implement some of these boundaries at home, so that your young person is getting a good night's sleep, not spending too long on their device, etc., etc., etc. So, and I spoke to a couple of principals who said to me, you know what, we've banned the phones in the schools, but the problem is as soon as they get out, they're sitting all night on the technology, and they're actually coming into school worse the next day because they've been on Snapchat at 2 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, it's a tough one.
Here's the final group question. AI, artificial intelligence, is here and it's adapting and morphing at lightning speed. And there's definitely a push by some of the big players to capture the ed tech space. AI is a tool, and like any other tool, it can be used for good or bad. So as digital literacy and internet safety advocates, what do you think should be one thing we should be speaking to youth and teens about when it comes to their use of AI technology?
I would say if you're looking for a one-liner, use it as a tool, not a magic pill. It's a tool that we all use. It's a great tool that children can use. But in many cases, it's not a magic pill and it won't replace a human. And the reason why I say that is I've had lots of conversations with children in schools, children and young people that are using AI, chatbots, various platforms to replace that human, and actually using it to seek advice on their mental health, asking questions like, am I neurodiverse? Am I autistic? Why have I got no friends? Why does no one like me? They're conversations that they should be having with a human. So use it as a tool, and a tool only, but seek adults to support you.
Well, I'm chuckling to myself here because we're actually right now, we've been working on a series of AI lessons, not just for this year's curriculum, but already for next year's curriculum. So we're churning one out like every 2 to 3 weeks. And I have a list here, and every week that whatever we're working on, I'm like, this is the most important lesson. As an example, we're working on privacy right now in AI. So important. Next week, we're working on the environmental impact of AI. Really important. Code of ethics with AI, really important. Chatbox in AI, important. Doing research with AI, that's important. So, I mean, this is not a one-shot deal. The kids have to have this full education on how it works, what it does, its implications in every single aspect of our lives, the jobs that they should not be educating themselves for because they're not going to be there in 10 years, they're not going to be there in 10 months. I mean, this is huge, huge, huge. And that's why it's like, I get so worked up, as you can see, when we worry about like, what should we ban or not ban? It's like, that conversation is so 2 years ago. We've got really big, big things on the horizon ahead of our children that we need to prepare them for. And AI is one of them.
Yeah, and I agree with everything that Diana just said. And Richard, kids need to know what AI is, how it works. They need to be encouraged in the ethical use of it because there are so many benefits with having AI. The two biggest issues we have in Australia is the AI-generated nude images of children, which we are very lucky that all our laws currently cover anyway, so it doesn't matter whether it's a real nude image or an AI-generated or synthetic nude image of a young person. It is still classed as child sexual abuse material, so there are penalties through legislation and through criminal consequences, so that's one really good thing. But we also have the chatbot stuff. And that is highly problematic in that we're certainly neurodivergent young people who trouble discerning things in real life are using these chatbots as a replacement for a real person. And I know myself, I set up not even a profile, I just engaged with a chatbot on Character AI. Because one of the things that you can do, which is also very problematic, is you can have a fitness coach or a diet coach on these platforms. And when I went in to join, I was paired with someone called the Adonis. And, you know, had I followed his diet advice, I wouldn't be here this morning with you. I'd be dead because he was promoting a 0-calorie diet. Now, as a relatively well-balanced adult, I know that that's wrong. But for a vulnerable young person, I don't. And what is even worse is even though I disengaged and moved on with my life because I didn't want to be fit and fabulous anymore, he still reaches out to me. Every few days, I get a message or an email from T. Adonis wanting to know where I am and why I'm not engaging back. And that's why the AI platforms, we need to have safety guardrails on them. You know, safety needs to be inbuilt into them, not an afterthought.
We've done the same thing all summer that you've done as well, or at least I have as a part of, we're just finishing off our lesson plans for the new AI that we're launching in the fall, much like all of you are, where we've done the same thing. But here, some of the challenge we've identified is because of the terms of service in a lot of these AI platforms, you have to be 13. And if you're under the age of 18, only with a parent's consent. So schools can't implement it basically without parents' consent. Okay, well, if all of a sudden I don't give consent as my child, what are you going to do with that child now, right? If you're using AI in the classroom. So it's very, very interesting. This is why we're also saying maybe we have to look at the specific platform, like a Conmigo. I don't know if you guys have played with that yet, but it is spectacular in the way it's being used and it's age appropriate. But some of the things that I've had, like your Adonis, I have a couple as well. And as soon as you get, and this is why Character AI nude social feed is going to be very interesting for us to watch over the next couple of months, because we do think kids, if they're being blocked by age gating on some of these other platforms, they're going to move to that platform, right? That's where they're going. And they're going to be talking to Adonis or Cupid or whoever it is.
I suppose the only thing I would add would be the fact that, our parents are really struggling with AI as well. It's trying to come up with, informative ways and practical ways to educate parents about the AI that's here already, some of the risks and the dangers, young people developing unhealthy relationships with chatbots. I've seen a number of examples of that in my world, particularly with work that I do with social workers and family services. So really trying to educate foster carers, parents about those risks and dangers, but also helping them help their young person use AI safely, appropriately, and responsibly. And I think that's really, really important as well. So we can't forget about our parents within this as well.
And not just the negatives, but we're also talking about the positives, right? Like, here's some cool things that can happen with AI if it's used appropriately. Richard.
Talking of positives, I think the new development of AI and just how fast it's come upon us, I think there can be a really positive here. I think, we talk to children a lot about critical thinking. We're looking at ways to enhance their critical thinking skills, and what better opportunity to do that than with AI, because critical thinking is so important in that landscape. And if we can help young people to develop them skills, AI is new, it's exciting, it's new and exciting to them as well. So that gives you a great opportunity not to rehash all the old stuff that we've been doing, to develop them skills. And again, once you've got them skills, it's so easy then to go back and have conversations about other stuff that we may have been talking about 2 or 3 years ago, and see how they can use them skills in them areas as well, because critical thinking it crosses all areas of their life. So I think we can use this as a great opportunity to really home in on these critical thinking skills that then can translate in other areas of their both on and offline lives, to be honest with you.
No, I don't disagree with that. Any other comments from anybody? Like, I think it's going to be even more changing than the Industrial Revolution. When you look at the Industrial Revolution and all the changes it made, I think this is going to be 10 times. Like, this is just, it's changing the playing field. And Diane, you were right. I mean, we're getting teens now asking us, well, what should I be thinking about employment down the future? And one of the things we're talking about is AI proofing yourself for work, but also some of the work that isn't here that will be here. Maybe that's how you want to go, right? Stuff like that. Talking about how much power and water needs to be used from an environmental standpoint, which is significant. Like, we have a small community here in British Columbia that is putting in 2 huge data centers, AI data centers, and those communities are already hard up for water. Like what's going to happen, right? So it's very, very interesting. It's exciting. Like, we're talking, not only are we talking about the challenges, the safety, security, and privacy, but we're also talking about some of the good things as well, Richard, right? Like what you mentioned, some of the positive things and how you as a teen or even an adult can use it. But here comes the next kind of question or comment is, we're already having problems getting parents out just to learn about, legacy, digital literacy, and internet safety, right? What about AI, right? What about AI? So, here's the concluding remark. So if you had one important message to share with parents and caregivers surrounding digital literacy and internet safety, what would that be? And let's start with Wayne.
get involved in your child's digital world. It's critical. It's important. You need to be there to support them. You need to help them, and you also need to be there that if they have a concern, an issue, something that they're worried about, that they can always come to you and have a conversation with it. I think that's so important that we instill that in our young people. Look, there are going to be things that happen. There are going to be bumps on the road. You might find yourself in a situation, maybe you've shared something, somebody has contacted you, you're worried about something. Don't ever be afraid to come and have a conversation with it. Many young people are afraid because they think they're not going to be allowed back onto the technology, or they're not going to be able to use their favorite game or go onto that social media platform. But I always say to parents, the banning of the technology and the removing of the technology is not the answer. You need to support your child in this digital world, and you need to make sure that you yourself have the skills and the confidence to be able to help them. So if your school is running an online safety session, get along to it each and every year, because as we all know, this information changes year in, year out, and it's so important to keep yourself up to date.
Diana.
Well, I think where we are today is digital literacy, especially a curriculum that includes AI literacy, because now it's a part of digital literacy, should never be looked at anymore as a nice add-on to the curriculum. It should be a non-negotiable. We are way beyond even discussing if we need it. Kids absolutely do need this.
Yeah, for sure. Susan.
Yeah, I agree with Wayne. Be an active participant in your child's life, both on and offline. If your child is using an app, a game, a site, or a platform, you need to have an account as well. And you need to link your account to theirs to ensure they get the safest experience possible. And again, make sure that they know that no matter what, they can come and tell you about a problem they're having, and you'll help them.
It's such an important last comment there. Richard.
You just made it really hard for me, guys, because you've stolen all of my ideas. What more can I say? Okay, I'll give this a go. So I'm going to just try and instill confidence in parents. And I always say this to parents, you don't need to be a tech expert. You don't need to know all the latest ins and outs of everything. But you do need to know what your children do. Get involved. Go on this journey with them. Be curious, ask as many questions as possible, show an interest, not to shut the conversation down, but to open it up. And you've all said it already, and it is my most important thing I say to parents, is normalize mistakes. Normalize mistakes. Make sure your children know that they will make some. They will accidentally click on a link. They will accidentally talk to someone that they didn't want to or shouldn't have been. They will accidentally say something or receive something that they didn't want. When these things do happen, we're not here to blame you or judge you. And definitely, as Wayne mentioned, not take things away. I hear it all the time in schools. That's what children are worried about. But we are here to help you. So, normalize them things. And last but not least, lead by example. Show your children that you have a healthy relationship with the online world. We can't tell them to get off screens if we find it hard ourselves. So lead by example, and your life experience will do all the hard work for you.
Brandon.
Coming to the realization that, technology is likely going to be a part of your child's success plan, whatever that might look for their future, either getting skills for a job, acquiring a job, performing effectively at whatever job or task they have. So there is a lot of, and I see the fear of trying to ban technology and get rid of it. But one of the concerns I have is what possible disadvantages does that give that young person in a relatively competitive world where having tech skills are so important to personal and professional success. So I think for parents, and coming at it from that perspective, to more empower parents and encourage parents, and not be a good parent or don't do bad things, but more uplift them. And if we can provide more of the good stuff, just naturally, that will begin to suppress some of the more negative things that students, kids might find themselves getting into.
Excellent. And I always say, be your child's best parent, not their best friend, right? When it comes to technology and all that. And sometimes that's hard, but that's what parenting is all about, right? Like that's what it's all about. So again, thank you to all. And thank you for participating in this roundtable. And from the White Hatter team, thank you to everybody who's watching. Have a great night, great day, great school year coming up. Bye, everybody.